I was falsely accused. It all began when I encountered a girl 23 years old, female, at work, whom I will refer to as Alexa. She was one of several interns in our company and drew my attention with her blonde hair and vivacious personality. It was September 2021, and we were still required to wear masks at the office. Therefore, the only feature of her face I could discern at that moment were her hazel eyes, the kind that can pierce into your heart. Once I finally got a clear view of her face, I found she resembled Amber Heard, just for context. I was also new to the company, having only been there for 3 months prior, so I thought it would be a great idea to invite a group of coworkers I was beginning to bond with out for drinks. I invited my new friend, whom I'll refer to as Jack, 22 years old, male, as well as Alexa and her new friend, Sandra, 22 years old, female. I obtained their phone numbers to coordinate our plans, and we were set. The following day, we all went out for drinks at various bars and had a fantastic time. I had the opportunity to get to know everyone better, especially Alexa. I discovered that we shared similar interests in television shows, and she was also a Marvel fan and played Dungeons & Dragons. I found myself falling for her instantly. As our day out drew to a close, I had plans to meet up with another male friend later that night to watch a movie. Jack mentioned that he believed Alexa had feelings for me based on her behavior around me, but I was oblivious to that and dismissed his comment. Later that evening, I received a text from her, wishing me a safe journey home, accompanied by a red heart emoji. Still not realizing I was being flirted with, I simply thanked her and suggested we plan our next outing. To my surprise, she mentioned she would actually be free later that night after her Dungeons & Dragons game with friends. After a bit of back and forth with my oblivious self, she eventually confessed that she had a crush on me. I was filled with joy and admitted I felt the same way. We met up after tending to our respective schedules. It was nearly midnight, and with little money to spare, we chose to stroll around my neighborhood park and discuss our feelings. She said that she liked me but wanted to keep things casual and not be in a formal relationship at that moment. I was fine with that, and we agreed to be friends with benefits. Over the next few days, we went out again with our previous friend group to watch the latest movie, Shanghai. During the film, we held hands discreetly, which I found thrilling. At the end of that night, everyone headed home except for her. We shared a passionate kiss in my car. A few days later, she came over and spent the night without any sexual activity. It's important to note that I was in between homes at that time, crashing on my friend's couch, which he was okay with. We simply enjoyed each other's company. After a few more days, we eventually had sexual relations in my car. This is not the main issue at hand. Then came an evening when we were in the middle of intimacy, and she suddenly instructed me to stop. I complied and asked if everything was all right, to which she replied that all was well. We cuddled on the couch and eventually fell asleep. I was just happy to be with her. I didn't think much of it, and we continued as usual again. This is not the main issue. One day, another coworker invited me and several male friends to her apartment for her birthday party, where she proceeded to get us all incredibly intoxicated. I had previously arranged to meet with Alexa afterward at my place. Alexa was not invited to the party since those girls were not particularly fond of her. Nevertheless, I left the party and met up with Alexa in my car, where we sat in the back as I sobered up. She made sure I was okay, and her care prompted me to voice what I felt inside. "I love you." She fell silent, and I was too inebriated to grasp the weight of my words. When we returned to my place, we sprawled on the couch, and she initiated kissing. Soon enough, we engaged in sexual activity and then fell asleep. We did not discuss my accidental confession that night until later. A couple of days later, we talked about her plans post-internship. Since she was from another state and only in town temporarily, we both recognized that there could be an end date for us. This led to a disagreement. I didn't want her to leave, but she was also conflicted. I suggested that if she was planning to leave, we should halt what we were doing to avoid getting too attached. Even though I was indeed getting attached, I figured I would brace myself for the inevitable. She didn't want to stop, so we continued. At this point, I had just moved to a new place, which was farther from my previous residence, but the only option I could afford. She visited almost daily, and we were intimate multiple times over 3 weeks until I broke my lease, having found a place closer to work at about the same time. During this period, I stumbled upon some intriguing information. I discovered that she was texting someone using heart emojis, which upset me a bit. I confronted her about it, but she attempted to evade answering my question. It turns out that the person she was communicating with was her boyfriend from back home. I was furious and decided to confront her via text. She was taken aback by my message, and I informed her I wanted to end our relationship. She repeatedly called, and I didn't pick up until the 10th attempt. She cried on the phone, pleading with me not to leave, even singing to me while I remained silent. After about 30 minutes, I hung up. The next day, she found me at work and wanted to discuss what had happened. I told her, "If you want to be with me, I think you should break things off with the other guy and confess what you've done because I've been in his position before." She understood and mentioned that her boyfriend was visiting in 1 week with her mother, so she would have a conversation about their relationship then. I acknowledged this, and we continued as before. She assisted me in moving into my new apartment, met my new roommates, and even slept on the floor with me since I didn't yet have a bed. The week of the talk, she was supposed to have coincided with my birthday, which was on Halloween. A friend visited that week, which helped distract me from what she was doing. I didn't see her until the day before my birthday. We both arrived at work simultaneously that day and walked in together. As we entered, I noticed that her lock screen was changed to a picture of her and her boyfriend. She quickly explained that she hadn't said anything to him during his visit because she didn't want to spoil his time or her mother's time, considering they had traveled across multiple time zones to reach our state. She also mentioned that she was coming to a decision about her future with the company and indicated she planned to stay, citing it was for my benefit. I felt an immense rush of joy knowing someone cared for me that much. The subsequent day, everyone at work was aware of my birthday and the costume party I was hosting at my apartment. Before the party began, Alexa came over to help my roommates and me decorate. She arrived with her usual overnight bag and later changed into her costume. She chose to dress as Yelena Romanov from the Black Widow movie. Many remarked that she resembled a combination of Florence Pugh and Brie Larson. Her costume was quite revealing, featuring a bodysuit that exposed her legs and curves, which I found quite attractive. As the party began, everyone started drinking, and things became lively. About 25 people filled my small apartment. Alexa began dancing with me, something she'd usually avoid to prevent revealing our connection. In plain sight, she kissed me and led me to my room, where we continued kissing before the party was interrupted by my neighbor, who came to complain about the noise. This marked the end of the party. Most guests left, except for a few friends who remained for a little while longer to sober up. I gathered their keys and went to my room, where Alexa was. We reclined and chatted until I re-emerged about 30 to 40 minutes later to return my friends' keys, as they insisted on leaving. Once they departed, I returned to my room, and we became intimate. We awakened around 6 a.m., talked for around 15 minutes, and then resumed our activities. Afterwards, I walked her to her car as usual. We kissed, and she drove away. Later that day, I shared with my friend Jack how I felt about Alexa, and he was happy for me. Following that, we continued communicating as usual and even made plans with some other friends to watch the Eternals movie. After that film, we returned to my place, and the same routine ensued. Nothing seemed amiss. At work, she began training in a different area and meeting new people, which is entirely normal in our job. Everything was fine until one night, while she was spending time with those friends, I inexplicably woke up at 2 a.m. with a wave of anxiety. I'm not someone who typically suffers from anxiety, but this came out of nowhere. I decided to call Alexa, knowing that hearing her voice could help calm me down. She answered after several attempts and helped me settle. However, when I saw her at work the following day, something felt off. Her demeanor had changed. She didn't interact with me in the same way. It was difficult to pinpoint, but we continued conversing normally. I asked her if everything was all right, and she ultimately revealed that she wanted to end our relationship. I was taken aback. She wouldn't explain her reason, and when I requested we discuss it, she refused. I let it go and prepared to accept the end of our connection. She stopped talking to me at work, only engaging when necessary. I sent her a final message, encouraging her to discuss matters before we ceased seeing each other, and she agreed. She mentioned she would text me the next day to update me. I waited all day, but no message arrived. My best friend at work, Zoe, who was aware of our situation, kept me company while I sat in distress. I didn't receive a text until 10 p.m. that night stating she was too tired to talk. I was heartbroken. My friend Jack dropped by for a while, but he planned to go to a club that night and invited me along. However, I was too distraught to go out. He offered me some melatonin to help with the sleep I was struggling to find. Later that night, while attempting to sleep after taking the melatonin, I received a text from Jack. He expressed his anger at seeing Alexa at the club, despite her claiming she was too exhausted to talk to me, together with some new coworkers. He confronted her, asking why she was there instead of providing me with closure. She said nothing, and he walked away. I determined that it was time to let her go. That was when she informed me the reason she wished to end our relationship was because she had discovered details about my ex-girlfriend, whom I had broken up with 2 months before meeting her, and how our breakup transpired. That was why I was in between homes when we crossed paths. The strange part was that no one else at work knew about my ex, which confused me. Then she claimed that during my birthday party, I had sexually assaulted her. In shock, I simply replied, "I am so sorry." I was bewildered and replayed everything in my mind for the next 2 days, wondering if it had truly happened. Why was she bringing this up now? Everything had seemed fine until she started her training and met new friends. I hadn't consumed much alcohol that night. I was fully aware and remembered the entire evening. For those 2 days, I felt consumed by anxiety, worried about what others would say or if they were aware of the situation. Alexa and I barely spoke. The anxiety was overwhelming, so I sought out one of my friends who had been present, Madison, to inquire about her memories of the night. She shared that she had seen Alexa and me being quite close, even disappearing to kiss. So I mentioned this to her. Madison seemed caught off guard and confused. The information spread to my close friends who had been present that night, and they all shared what they remembered, expressing their support for me. To summarize, my friends mentioned having seen Alexa and me engaging in behavior that suggested we were a couple and confirmed they had an inkling of our relationship. They also noted that she had approached them, appearing very inebriated, and they observed her with a drink in hand. My friend Zoe had even given Alexa a ride the day after the party, during which Alexa had expressed a desire to throw another party because she couldn't get drunk while babysitting others. These two pieces of information contradicted each other. Her new friends had also attended my party, but I was unfamiliar with them as they were invited by another friend of mine. No one else observed her acting out of character at work or engaging in unusual conversations. This became a major topic of discussion among my friends and me because we wanted to understand what had led her to accuse me of sexual assault. Since she refused to talk to me, it was difficult to get clarity. During this tumultuous time, Thanksgiving approached, and my friends decided to host a Friendsgiving gathering. Alexa learned about this through Snapchat and became upset. I had chosen not to invite Sandra since she was friends with Alexa, even though I was also friends with her. I felt caught between whom to trust. The day after my Friendsgiving, Alexa texted me to apologize, stating, "Things didn't end how I wished them to. I wish my schedule had allowed us to talk earlier. I'd like to discuss things if you are still open to it. I never meant to avoid talking with you. Please let me know." I immediately inquired when she wanted to meet up, and we scheduled a date and time to talk. I secretly recorded our conversation to analyze her statements and compare them to what everyone else had shared. During our discussion, she claimed that a lot of what we had done lacked consent, particularly on Halloween. She only realized this after the fact. I responded by saying that I never intended for it to come across that way and acknowledged that there was no excuse if that was indeed how it was perceived, but I also didn't want to invalidate her feelings. We experienced a miscommunication, and I wished she had addressed it sooner. I then asked how she had learned about my ex, but she refused to provide an answer. We discussed our recollections of events, but she couldn't remember much past the point of me closing my door. She was uncertain whether her memory was faded or if her brain was shielding her. The conversation concluded, and she escorted me to my car from her apartment, stating she would like to remain friends, though I hesitated, expressing uncertainty about my readiness for that. After a few days, I decided to reach out again, stating we could attempt to be friends and take things slowly to avoid making her uncomfortable. She replied that she still felt some discomfort, but she also desired to maintain a connection and friendship. She indicated that having exposure to me would help her feel more at ease. Following this, she promptly asked if I was free that night, suggesting she come over to hang out. She expressed enthusiasm, which left me confused. In the midst of this, she began flirting with me, and when I inquired why, she replied she was just trying to have a good time. I reiterated that I didn't want to make her uncomfortable. She responded that she wouldn't mind if I pretended nothing had changed. She didn't want me to act as though I hated her. When she came over that evening, we watched a movie, and she wasted no time making advances toward me. I checked in to see if she was okay with this, to which she responded affirmatively, and she took me to my room, where we had sex again. My friends were unaware of us rekindling our relationship until one day when a few of them, who were still friends with her, were out with her. She invited me to an event that required a ticket, purchased one for me, and we attended together. Everyone was surprised to see me there, but I didn't think much of it. I simply enjoyed being there. Not long after that night, we slipped back into our usual rhythm for another month, until she attended an all-girls Christmas party, where she contracted COVID-19 without realizing it. She visited and passed it on to me, resulting in an outbreak at work. We both had to quarantine for 2 weeks. Despite this, we had a wonderful time celebrating Christmas and New Year's. We only met a couple of times during our COVID quarantine, mainly to talk while we skated around my neighborhood. On Christmas, I gifted her a framed drawing of her with her cat, alongside a small replica of a blue French horn. She adored it, and I captured her reaction on video, where she sweetly kissed me on camera. The last time we spent together was on New Year's Eve when we watched the fireworks, and we shared a kiss as we welcomed in 2022. Once we returned to work, I noticed her behavior was peculiar again. That night, as we were leaving, she asked for a ride from one of her new friends. She left with one of the girls while the other girl and I walked in the same direction to our cars. I finally mustered the courage to ask a question that had been nagging at me. "Do you think I'm wasting my time pursuing Alexa?" Her response took me by surprise and seemed to tie everything together. Later that night, I video called her to discuss what her friend had shared with me. Out of nowhere, she became defensive and ended the call angrily, which left me unsettled. The next day, things escalated further when she finally accused me of rape. This was the last straw. While some might think I was foolish for holding on for so long, the truth is, I genuinely loved her. You might be curious about what her friend disclosed to me that evening. Essentially, she revealed that they were not really friends but merely coworkers, which contradicted my prior understanding. She also mentioned that while we had taken a break in November, Alexa pursued another friend within her social circle. That friend just so happened to be my ex-boyfriend's best friend, which is how she became aware of her. Alexa developed feelings for him and was still in contact with him while we were attempting to reconnect. She reportedly told him she loved him. I was in utter disbelief. I had been trying to ascertain who this guy was. Interestingly, a few days later, this same individual called me using a friend's phone. He clarified everything. That visit to my apartment following my insistence that I didn't want to make her uncomfortable was after she had come from his place, having returned his hoodie soaked in her perfume along with a drawing of him. Additionally, she had engaged with one of his friends in a non-consensual manner. The irony of the situation made me chuckle in disbelief. I messaged that guy, and he corroborated my findings. I thought this nightmare would soon conclude since her internship was drawing to an end, and she had not been offered a position at our company. Yet, at the last moment, she received a job offer and subsequently moved in with others who had aligned themselves with her during this entire saga. Completely out of the blue, while I was still on the phone with the guy, I received a text from her stating, "You calling me a bitch, especially at work, shows me more about your personality than I ever needed to know." I outlined my boundaries when we first communicated, and those boundaries have never changed. If you want to be angry, direct it at yourself for relying on something that was never destined to go your way. Your obsession with me and gaslighting only serves to harm your perception of me. I know you see me as an object and an accomplishment. I am more than anything you could ever begin to understand, and I am more than capable of finding better in this world than having you in my life. Your negative words speak more about you as a man than anything related to me. So, feel free to express yourself, but tell the story accurately. I have only given you a meaningful connection and free emotional support. If you believe that makes me a bitch, then I accept that label. If upholding my commitments makes me a bitch, then I'll embrace that title. If me asserting my desires makes me a bitch, I royally wear that title. Consider yourself blocked and seek actual therapy because how you navigate this world is disturbing. Following this, she shared a warped version of events on her Snapchat story, portraying me as the abuser and claiming I had pressured and manipulated her. I could no longer stay silent and decided to report her to management. Initially hesitant, my friends persuaded me to take action since her accounts were inconsistent. Management requested that I send her a final message to display my willingness to remain civil. I wrote, "I'm reaching out because I feel the current atmosphere at work is uncomfortable. I would like to set some boundaries for both our sakes to ensure comfort in our workspace. I prefer that we maintain a completely professional relationship and communicate solely when required by our positions. I hope we can keep things civil moving forward so that we can both thrive in the workplace." Her response was horrifying. She claimed I had made her feel suicidal because all her friends had abandoned her, despite her self-inflicted circumstances. Even those she had moved in with recognized her erratic behavior and sought me out to apologize for how she acted while living with them. Ultimately, they compelled me to sign documents stating I would not discuss the matter further, or I risked termination. Following this, I started interacting with her friend, Sandra, and recounted some not-so-flattering things Alexa had said about her. Sandra confessed that Alexa was undoubtedly up to no good. She confirmed that Alexa was, in fact, dating another guy concurrently when we began seeing each other. At one point, Sandra reported that Alexa had admitted to liking me, only to rescind that statement a few days after the party. For months, things remained quiet between the two of us. We were both being considered for a managerial position, and I ultimately secured the role. I learned that she had began dating another coworker who had been promoted alongside me. She repeated the same manipulative behavior with him over the following months. Initially, he disdained me. However, over time we became friends, bonding over the turmoil she had caused both of us. I also met someone new and was getting along well until we broke up around my birthday. That's when she decided to escalate matters. Upon learning I had broken up, and realizing I was a well-liked manager, she aimed to ruin my reputation. During my breakup, I took some time off work. Alexa seized this opportunity to strike me while I was vulnerable. She posted on her story alleging that, a year ago today, our manager raped her. I awoke to a screenshot message from my friend Madison. It was my 23rd birthday, and I felt another wave of anxiety. I was not at work and was unaware of the potential destruction she had wrought. Upon returning to work, I walked into my manager's office, where everyone was silent and looking at me. They had all heard her allegations and sided with me. I filed a report with Human Resources, but they stated there was nothing they could do since it was a matter that took place outside of work. I sat in disbelief. Every time I saw her after New Year's of 2022, I felt a chill down my spine. There was one occasion when I entered a room to print some documents, and she happened to be inside. Our eyes met, and my spine stiffened. I could not look her in the eye, despite now being her superior. The new employees were not privy to my story, and I could not clear my name without facing consequences. Eventually, that feeling subsided, and we remained obligated to work together, though I kept things civil. Over time, I realized she was a narcissist and a borderline alcoholic. I am still grappling with everything that transpired. What are your thoughts? I know this was lengthy, and I apologize. Story 2. My narcissist ex finally moved out, back to his ex. Let me set the stage. You encounter someone online who charms you with all the right phrases, but they reside on the East Coast while you are situated in the Midwest. This presents no issue in our current technological era. You begin a long-distance relationship, and things appear promising. Then, you discover he has been communicating with his ex. Shortly after, he ends your relationship, claiming that long distance is too challenging and that he desires someone to return to. You find a way to cope. You cry, and you move forward. It has not even been 12 hours before he reaches out to you, sobbing and apologizing for his actions because you called his bluff and shut him out. You reconcile, drawn in by your compassionate and romantic nature, still clinging to the image he has created. A month goes by. He is ready to relocate sooner than anticipated but lacks the funds. You cover the expenses to fly to him, rent a truck, and transport him across the country to live with you. Within a month, he is messaging his ex, claiming you are a deceptive individual, despite numerous unfiltered video calls and having met in person once before the move, during which you spent 72 hours together, stating that he is merely using you, calling you his financial provider, and indicating that he intends to leave as soon as possible. Upon discovering these messages, you confront him about his deceit, and he once again returns to you, crying and apologizing, and you succumb to his charms because he may not show you affection, but at least he is finally holding you. This cycle continues for a year, until the ultimate betrayal. This is my farewell letter to him. Since you have ample time to reflect on this during your drive, I want to share some parting thoughts. I do not regret this experience. Referring to our connection as a relationship is quite a stretch. From this, I have realized that I am far stronger than I ever thought possible. I possess remarkable resilience. I have an incredible family and a support network, despite your efforts to isolate me. And now, I have a clearer understanding of what unacceptable behavior I will never tolerate again. I do regret how much nonsense I allowed you to escape with, how easily I permitted you to manipulate me. I recognized what you were doing when you messed up the first time, and then the next time, and again after that. I allowed it to happen because I valued your feelings over my own. You were never smarter than me in this game. I simply didn't care enough to take action. Yes, I was not perfect, but I certainly am a far better person than you will ever be. I am intelligent, kind, generous, caring, loving, humorous, attractive, extraordinary, and so much more than the negative image you attempted to project. I'm a catch, and I always have been. Conversely, you are a narcissist, a manipulator, and a chronic liar. I stayed silent each time you spoke about the first time you encountered a narcissist, but that occurred long before you entered my life. Just take a look in the mirror. You claimed I was no longer a good conversationalist, though you probably wouldn't use such a sophisticated term, yet you never allowed me to express myself. You frequently interrupted me or made me feel that my contributions were trivial. At times, I would stop mid-sentence, but you were never considerate enough to inquire about it. Every relationship you have ever cultivated is based on a foundation of falsehoods. If you were even a fraction of the person you portrayed in your messages, the facade you constructed to attract people, that would have been remarkable. My standards have always been modest. We have discussed this. The bar was on the ground, and you still somehow failed to reach it. You are incapable of loving anyone as much as you love yourself. Your ego is inflated for reasons unknown. Very seldom do I witness anyone praise you publicly, which was supposed to be such a significant deal, yet it is laughable. I receive more compliments at the gas station. In fact, even Eric was asked to dance multiple times when we went out. Your height has always been a concern for me. I disliked having to lean over to hug you or crouch down to kiss you. You should have felt diminished, yet I never mentioned it because I am a decent person. You are nothing but human debris destined to endure a miserable, isolated existence because you lack the ability to form and maintain meaningful connections. You will never escape your debts, nor will you rebuild your life. You will drain those around you until there is nothing and no one left. There is a reason you had to reach out to your ex from 3 years ago for help, and that is because no one else genuinely cares about your well-being. Additionally, how pathetic that the only individuals willing to assist you are the parents of your most recent ex-roommate. One would expect she would exert more effort to help, but it is clear that she only wants the cats, and you will be discarded like the trash you are. Even your family will not aid you. You must jump from one woman to another to avoid being homeless. You likely do not even care for her, right? That is what you repeatedly told me, that you would never reconcile with her. So, logically, that means you are simply using her as you used me. Rather than facing poverty and homelessness, you seek out the next available bed. I pity you. Lacking a place to call home or anyone willing to offer more than the bare minimum to support you is unfortunate. You brought this upon yourself, and you will continue to subject every unfortunate individual who crosses your path to the same fate. You are merely a parasite. You suck the life out of everyone who encounters you, and your emotional maturity resembles that of a small child. I understand that you experienced a difficult upbringing and I empathize with that, but you choose to behave like a jerk. I am thrilled to no longer have to be concerned about trivial matters. I will no longer walk on eggshells. I can express myself freely. I will love and be loved in return. It is unfortunate that you will never experience genuine happiness, love, or peace. My heart aches for you and the cosmic karma that is headed your way. I ended our relationship in my mind months before this moment. You were no longer worth my energy. You wasted my time, but it feels liberating to finally be free. In the spirit of positivity, good riddance.